everyone. Hi, everyone.
We made it.
We made it. This is another day, another live at Broadway Music Sessions. I am your host, Geraldine Anello, and today I am very excited to welcome my friend, Cynthia Meng. Hey, Cynthia.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be here, another
I'm
day.
I'm so excited to have you. So, for those of you who don't know Cynthia, she does a lot of things. So, as a musician, and she was the music assistant. I know lots of people out there have questions about music assisting on Broadway, so you may ask them to her in the comment section. She was the music assistant of the Broadway shows Frozen and Hadestown, and also of the amazing off-Broadway shows Witness Uganda and In the Green, that was at Lincoln Center. She also won the audition and was key two at Radio City Christmas Spectacular, which is quite a coveted gig here in town. And she's also the key three at Company on Broadway, which it was open up to the pandemic, and hopefully will reopen on the other side as well. So we can say currently key three at Company. But that is not all. The other thing to know about Cynthia is that she comes from a background as a software engineer. Why, yes, which makes her remarkably informed when it comes to things like how to come up with tricks on finale. Let me tell you, like, she makes her own code and like shortcuts to make it all better as a music assistant. That's why she's one of the most in-demand assistants in the Broadway community. And she's a really freaking incredible pianist. Why do I know that? Because I remember, Cynthia, seeing you at your apartment one evening post-show. I was there with you, and you were talking about the composer Nikolai Kapustin, and you were talking about practicing his studies. I had never heard of him, despite my many degrees in classical music. Whoops, whoops. And I promptly looked him up, and those scores you were working on, and oh my, that was quite the level. So how do you go from being basically a virtuosic classical pianist to a software engineer, to a Broadway music assistant, and then Broadway musician?
Awesome. Well, okay. Wow, that's like a lot to cover. Okay, first, I do want to say I was the music assistant for the tour of Frozen, not on Broadway, just to clarify that, so
Just
I
to
don't
clarify.
ruffle anyone's feathers. Okay, so I was classically trained. I did that. I was a good Asian kid. I did the I did
Here we go.
the whole track. I was a competitive player, and honestly, it was kind of like horrible. I don't know. It was really difficult mentally. Like, you just are competing and you're always playing alone. You're never playing with other people. And I just was like, I had a really bad time growing up with that. And so like when I went to college, I was just kind of like, you know what? Like, I'm good. I'm gonna leave this behind because I have a really bad experiences with it, fairly traumatic memories. But when I was in college, I did a lot of just like extracurricular music stuff. So a cappella, I was doing a lot of musical theater, of course, like a lot of the school productions and stuff, and got my feet wet music directing there. And then I didn't really know that was like a job you could have, like being a music director. I just like I had no idea. And so when I actually finally like learned more about the industry, I was like, oh, like that's pretty cool. But at the time I was already getting my degree in computer science. I was like on a different path. And so I finished up the degree. It was, I basically was there. So I did it. I got the degree. I got a job to, make my parents happy and also to be secure and whatever. And moved to the city. And I was like, you know what? I got a job in New York City. So my plan is I'll gig on the side and I'll have my full-time job, and then we'll see what happens, whatever. And then it was just kind of like, I was gigging a lot on the side, and I did assist on a lot of different things and kind of worked my way up from there. And then about a year and a half ago, it was like, okay, like I think I have enough momentum built up, which, unfortunately now, like the momentum has like stopped thanks to the pandemic. But at the time it was like, okay, great. Like, the ball is rolling. So like, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to just become a freelancer. And then it was great. It felt like the world was telling me that I did the right thing, because then the big ticket gigs really started coming. Radio City and Broadway, of course, making my Broadway debut. So that was kind of what led me to here now.
Now, I know a lot of people ask, particularly in the theater music directors group, if to be on Broadway, being a music assistant is the best path. In your experience, did you get your chance on Broadway because you started as a music assistant on Broadway?
I would say for me that's true. Like that is definitely my path. And I would say it's a lot of people's paths. It's not everybody's path, of course, but it is for me. And like the people that I met music assisting are the people that recommended me later, to other people. And that's how I ultimately got the gigs that I was kind of aiming for eventually, which is to play and to music direct and things like that.
Yeah, and everyone, if you have questions for Cynthia about being a music assistant, feel free to ask them in the comments. I know we get a lot of them in the theater music directors group. One of the biggest one is like, how do you become a music assistant when you first moved to New York? What's that process?
It's so weird because like I think it's just about making yourself known that you do that. Like that's part of it, right? You just have to be like offering yourself up as someone who knows finale or Sibelius and is generally like organized and competent also, because like that's a huge part of it, is like all the organizational and technical skills around that. And then it's also similarly to like literally every other job. It's like who do you know? Expanding your network, so to speak. The buzzword network that's very true. Like you just kind of have to. It's about people knowing that you are good at it, and then it's about knowing more people. And I think that's like twofold.
What was your experience working on Hadestown? Because I know by the time they came to Broadway, they had been around for maybe 10 years or so. So I assume there were many versions of the score. They were doing a lot of different things internally. So what was that experience like for you?
It was wonderful. I have to say, like, I mean, that was my first Broadway experience ever. And it was just like, with that show, it was so special. And like everyone on the music team is so great. And like, for me, it was such a good learning experience just to watch a show come together like that on that level. And on the music side of things, like I had a lot of responsibility, honestly. I had a lot of things to do. I was dipping my toes in with like Ableton and like also, all like Sibelius and dealing with orchestrator and stuff. I felt like it was in some ways like, because the team was like very small. So I actually did have to like shoulder a lot of responsibility when it came to basically everything on the music team. And then I'm still there now. I'm a rehearsal pianist and I'm there like, fairly often.
So you get hired as a music assistant. What happens next? Like you just show up to rehearsal. You like what's that process like?
There's some prep work usually. You usually get the Dropbox, right? And then you're looking through and like you're making sure the score is like ready for the first day of rehearsal. But then you get to rehearsal and it's all about what the music director wants. So it's like it's half like getting to know the person, right? You're like in rehearsal, watching them work, having lunch with them, and like just getting to know them as a person is like so much of the job. And then of course you're in there, you're tracking changes, you're printing. That's the fun part, is the printing and the kind of like organizational tasks and stuff.
So how do you get to know someone then? Because you say like getting to know them is important. What do you do besides lunch? You send them like a little like personality questionnaire. Welcome to my music assisting team. Now, do you prefer oranges or apples?
I just like a little survey that I
yes, please. You prefer your assistants quiet, vocal,
yeah, exactly. And but it's true. It's like almost like in some ways you like wish you could know that up front, but of course that's never how it is.
Maybe I'm onto something. Maybe
I know, right?
Do you want your coffee black? What is your favorite lunch? What are signs that you're hungry?
I mean, like again, all things that probably would be good to know. No, I mean like it's so much just it's how do you get to know your friends, right? The more time you spend with them, the more you're gonna know about them. And in a work setting, the more time you're in rehearsal and watching them work, you're like, okay, so this is how he likes to rehearse, and this is how she likes to, like lead rehearsal, and what she likes to have prepared before rehearsal, and the workflow, right? And those are only things that you can get just by literally being there, which is like a huge part of the music assistant thing, is that you're there from day one all the way till opening night, every day, all the time.
So do you get some of your like favorite parts of the job when no one ever notices what you do, or do you also get something really cool where there's a crisis and you're able to help it in the moment? Like, which one of those two is the best part of it?
I wish I could be a good person and say that it's the unseen work and like being an unseen hero, but it's like no. I like I'm a human and I have an ego and I like to be recognized for hard work. Like that's true. I'm happy to admit that. So it's like, yeah, it feels good when you're helpful and people notice.
Yeah, you're right. I have been part of teams where the leadership of the team will make it a daily habit to say thank you and great job. And like that makes such a difference. And it's so small. And that's all it is. It's like every single day, hey, thank you for today. Great job. Every day. And if they don't say it in rehearsal because maybe you left like early or like your path didn't cross, they will text it. Like I've been in those teams and you're like, oh, I'm really lucky. I work with really wonderful people.
Yeah, that's really nice. Like I honestly don't know that I could say I've ever been in that situation. Not in a bad way.
I mean, like Remy Curse is someone that comes to mind. Like Remy is like what exactly? See that reaction? That's what I'm talking about.
Remy, I love you.
Remy, I love you too. Let's fight it out. Which one of us loves Remy more? So let's talk about the transition then. So you're music assistant and then now you're on your first Broadway show.
Yes.
Not as an assistant. Is that scary? Is that awesome? Is that finally, or is it like, okay, cool, like that makes sense? What is that like?
It feels good, I will say. I think I reached a point like probably, I think after Hadestown and then a few months more of the, like after that, it was kind of like, okay, I think I want more. Like I think there's a feeling that a lot of music assistants get, like when you work in that long enough in that like career or whatever, is that like you feel like a yearning for more responsibility. Like that is really something that I felt was like, oh, like I can do this. Like I have the ability and I want to do more. And so when I finally I feel like I've made the transition, although who knows, but like, I when I felt like I had made the transition and I debuted and all this kind of stuff, it really did feel like, okay, sweet. I worked really hard. I felt like I paid my dues, so to speak. I worked really hard and that was like a good moment of like, I reached the goal post for thinking about it that way. So,
I feel like the longer it takes for a goal to be reached, the sweeter the reward.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like if you like have something in mind and you get it, it's like, oh, okay.
but if you have to like claw your way to get
there. I've always said, I think in this business in particular, like I've met a lot of people that got their breaks really, really early. Like we're talking right out of school, national tour, or like kind of big jobs, right? Like that. And they tend to burn quite fast because they haven't gotten the chance to go through things that are not fun then know why those are good gigs. Because of course, like any job, there's going to be some downsides, and then they just see the downsides and it's not what they thought it would live up to.
Mm-hmm. I think that's actually something that I grapple with a lot, which is to say that like I also, right, when I moved to the city, like I had another career for like 3.5 years. So like I didn't even really get like into the like music assisting thing, and then ultimately like up until like later, I mean, and all this to say, like I understand that like being in your 20s is generally considered young, but like when I think it's actually weird
early. No, I'm talking like really like,
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It's like, but when you're 20, when you're 25, right, or 26, like you look at a 22-year-old and you're like, oh my God, like they're 22, like they're so much younger than me, and like there's so much, like they're doing all these things that like I should have been doing when I was 22, and like I'm getting old, I'm getting so old, like oh my God, which I realize it's like messed up, right? It's just messed up, this idea that like you have to be obsessed with being the youngest person, or like the youngest, like the upstart or whatever. And I've had to like grapple with that and like wrap my mind around it and be like, everyone is like on their own path. It's fine. Like there's no such thing as too old, and like you're always learning, and everyone should be always learning. So it's fine.
I think to me, it's like the body of work matters.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Like you can get one good gig. Can you get 2 good gigs?
Sure.
You can get like, that's really the thing to me. And it's like, what is the longevity? You can get one good gig for like 8 years. Okay. But like, can you get multiple gigs all the time?
Yeah.
And those are the criteria that
Yeah.
like the people I admire are those people. And also like in New York, people are always up and down. Like it's always you have this great gig, then you're here. Like there's not really this like linear path that people in corporate careers have. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe like the software
This idea
engineering
that
path,
you're going up like this always.
that's not the theater world.
No.
That's not, and I find that really interesting when talking with non-musicians or like people not in the theater world to really explain that. Be like, you kind of have to take that idea away.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. So what you mentioned the responsibilities you were able to have after being a music assistant. What were some of those responsibilities that you enjoyed taking on?
I think one of my favorite things was like in Hadestown that like I was tasked with like adjusting the click tracks. I think that was like, there's no Ableton programmer because they don't use any like real Ableton, but we had to like program these click tracks and stuff. And so that job ultimately did fall to me. And so like it's actually really funny that like some of the count-ins are just me. Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
You have the voice.
I know. I'm like, my lasting legacy on Hadestown.
For sure.
My voice is on the count-in. That was fun.
You made
honestly. It. I had to learn. That's how I learned to use Ableton.
Not your voice, okay. Let's talk about Radio City, because I think a lot of people who are not in the New York circles don't know exactly how that works. Tell me a little bit about what's different between getting to work at Radio City and getting to work on a Broadway show.
Okay. Well, first of all, Radio City, you have to audition to get in, which is like, and it's like a blind audition and all this. You like walk into the room and the judges or whatever, they're sitting, the music director and the other people are
Simon Cowell.
Yeah, they're sitting behind like a screen. You can't see them. And like, you just play your 1-minute excerpt or whatever. And then the excerpt from the show. So it's actually, I mean, that's I would say that's very different from Broadway. Broadway, it's all just like the contractor kind of just picks you, I guess. But and then of course playing the Christmas show is its own like journey. Let's say I think there's like 200 shows, and you have most chairs are split. So I had a partner who was like I split the shows with, and so we each played about 100 shows. But the shows are like in a 2-month period. So you're playing like, and it ramps up like through the season. So halfway through the season, you're playing like upwards of like 16, 18 shows in a week. It's crazy. You're so tired, and like it's just all your time is spent at radio. You'll finish the show.
Those shows are 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, 90 minutes, and then you eat your lunch, and then you go and play the show again. Like you have a 1-hour break. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Now, what's the show like itself? Like playing it, that rig, the whole experience. Besides the amount of shows?
Yeah, the keyboards, it's just the keyboard, and all the patches are programmed onto the keyboard itself. It's like a motif. And shout out Randy Cohen. And then there's a conductor, and there are some moments that are like properly stick conducted, but actually most of it is on click. And the click, I think Nissa actually mentioned it in her Facebook, and because you
click. Go.
Yeah. It's literally like tape go, and then oh yeah, and then every measure is counted. If you have that bar number count up in your mix, which I sometimes did because my book was like you'd play like 3 measures and then like wait for 25 measures and then come in and play another like. So yeah, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 226, 2, 3, 4.
And that's the question: is the easiest book to play the book where you play all the time or very little?
Yeah, I know. That's a good question. I would say they both have their ups and downs. It's still probably the book where you play more. But
that right?
But it does put some sort of pressure on like every entrance in keyboard too. It's just like, oh my god, like I can't miss. I have to pay attention to the rest.
Oh, now something, and I'm not even going to ask this question right because I am not a techie and I don't even know what terms to use. But you brought to me something very interesting, which was you make your own coding programming into Finale and Sibelius, or mostly Finale, and beyond the add-ons and all of that, so that you really make Finale what you need it to be. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. And you were not so far off, like in your
Well,
description.
well.
Okay, so Finale, right? You have a lot of people in order to be like more productive with these programs will use like plugins. They're called plugins, and you can download them and install them on, and then they just give you a lot more power with like the software. And so like for for me, like coming from a software background, like I'm used like all those plugins are what we're called scripts. They're just like a list of commands that you can give to the computer that will allow you to be more powerful in the software. So I've just kind of toyed around with writing my own for like my own purposes and things like that. And I've actually found it's really cool. It's a really concrete way to use the skills that I kind of had from my other life and kind of
So like
and use them.
you can do crazy things. I mean, in conversation, you told me, for example, you wrote your own script for measure numbers in
Yeah,
Finale.
that
So
wasn't even
what does that do? What is that?
that wasn't even the Finale script. That was just like I wrote a Google sheet that like did it. And it's just basically to the short version of it is that like measure number regions can get really hard to like keep track of, especially when we have a big number. Like for example, like the opening number of Moulin Rouge, I remember, was like this really insane, like they cut stuff and then they added stuff, and there are all these workshops where they like were like redoing the measure numbers, and you just end up with this like giant measure number region like dialogue box, and it's crazy. And so yeah, I wrote like the other assistant and me like looked at together like a little script just to basically input, this is what I want the measure numbers to look like, and then it would output, this is what you should put into Finale to make it look like that. And so it actually made our lives a lot easier. It was just a great example of software being really helpful.
So what's your favorite, since this one was just a Google sheet, what was something that you, like one of your favorite tools you were able to create for yourself that is making your life much easier on Finale?
Honestly, like a lot of the stuff that I like is just super easy if you know like the commands. Like it's simple, let me put it that way. So like in Finale, like you can write scripts to batch process stuff, right? If I want to like do a lot of things to a bunch of files, I can just write like a little thing and then hit like enter or whatever, and then it'll just like do that action for like all of the files in this folder, and it just saves you a shit ton of time, a bunch of time.
How can the non-techie of us get to that level?
Well, that's a good question. There are a lot of tutorials online. Like really, like there's
How to be like Cynthia Meng.
just Finale, like Google like Finale script or JW Lua tutorial, and it's like people like there have been some really really amazing musicians out there who like wrote awesome documentation and tutorials on like how to write your own script, and like here's how the language works and this and that. It's actually,
that's so cool.
Take the time.
I love it. So I'm so excited now. You're going to be playing for us some Nikolai Kapustin.
Oh my God. I was like, no. I'm not ready.
Just kidding. This is a tease. Everybody, if you do not know Kapustin, because I know I didn't know it either, but do yourself a favor. Go, depending on how scared you want to be, listen to it or look at the score. I mean, both will work equally, and then let me know what you think. Yeah. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for being always amazing and like leading the charge with all things technology and bridging the gaps of your two massive skill sets for the rest of us that don't have both of them. So,
thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Everyone, we will be back next week for more Broadway music sessions. Have a lovely end of your week. And bye, everyone. Bye, Cynthia.